Welcome back to CBS News 24/7. So video to our monitors takes us to the White House right now, where Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt briefed reporters just moments ago. CBS News White House reporter Olivia Rinaldi is outside of that room, has all the details and the headlines that came out of that. Olivia, what stood out to you so far? It kind of felt like a fast briefing.
Hey, Reed. Yeah, it was a very quick briefing there from Karoline Leavitt, the press secretary today, and a lot of it was about the shutdown, which is clearly hanging over Washington. One of the things I want to take through first that she did talk about was what we had just talked about at the top of the hour, which was whether those employees had been laid off, as the president had said, that those layoffs were already happening, or if they had been furloughed. Karoline had clarified that the president meant that those employees were furloughed. Those mass firings have not happened yet, but they could happen depending on where the vote goes today in the Senate to reopen the government. Our Jennifer Jacobs also asked Karoline Leavitt about the outreach that this White House is potentially doing, particularly to Democrats, who they do need in that chamber in order to get the government reopened. Take a listen to what Karoline said about that in the briefing just now.
I heard you say that you want people to call their Democratic senators. Is the president calling Democratic senators himself? Can you say what he's doing today to resolve the shutdown?
Yep, I was just in the Oval Office. He was on the phone with Speaker Johnson. He's also spoken with the Senate Majority Leader, who are in touch with, of course, moderate Democrats and Democrats across the board, who we understand hopefully want to do the right thing by their constituents to reopen the government. So the president is being kept very well apprised of the ongoing shutdown on Capitol Hill. And of course, his position is very clear. There's nothing to negotiate, just reopen the government, and then we can talk about all the important issues facing our country.
So clearly those negotiations ongoing on Capitol Hill between Senate Democrats, Senate Republicans, and this White House. Onto a different topic, another negotiation that is ongoing is between the U.S. and mediators with Hamas about that potentially impending deal of what a future in Gaza could look like after we know that Hamas, Netanyahu, Prime Minister Netanyahu in Israel, and the Trump administration, along with some other Arab states, had agreed to the outlines of some sort of deal last week that was handed over to Hamas. That was that 20-point deal that you and I had talked about. We were asking, someone had asked about the timeline. When can we expect more from these negotiations? Karoline mentioned that these talks are happening now. Take a listen to what she had to say about that specifically here.
Behind you, yes.
What is President Trump's expectations for talks today and I guess this week in Egypt? And is there a new timeline that the president is giving all sides to reach an agreement?
Yes, there are technical talks happening right now in Egypt amongst Special Envoy Witkoff and Mr. Kushner, as well as their respective parties from all sides. What we saw take place on Friday, and I have not commented on that from the podium yet, is truly remarkable. You've seen all sides of this conflict agree that this war needs to end and agree to the 20-point framework that President Trump proposed. It's an incredible achievement, and the administration is working very hard to move the ball forward as quickly as we can. The president wants to see a ceasefire. He wants to see the hostages released, and the technical teams are discussing that as we speak to ensure that the environment is perfect to release those hostages. They're going over the lists of both the Israeli hostages and also the political prisoners who will be released, and those talks are underway, and the president is very much on the...
Now, Reed, Karoline also said that these negotiations are extremely sensitive. This White House is monitoring them very closely, but doesn't want to get out ahead on any potential deals or prescribing perhaps a timeline to when this could all be solved. But these negotiations are ongoing, something for us to watch very closely.
All right, so government shutdown, the talks going on in Egypt trying to end the war in Gaza. But there's also another hot topic, and that is a war playing out in courtrooms across the country. And that's the question of deploying National Guard troops from one state to another state. Did Karoline Leavitt have anything to say on that point?
Well, she did talk a lot about the National Guard troops on the ground, decrying the judge who ruled over the weekend, giving that temporary restraining order, not allowing those California National Guard troops, which had already been federalized earlier in the year in June, to be deployed to Portland to deal with situations on the ground there. This White House told us earlier this morning that they are going to appeal that decision. This is continuing to be a fight and a crux for this administration and the expansion of executive power. Karoline did say, though, that the reason why the National Guard is still here in Washington is because you know, it's different here, I will say, because this is a federal city. So essentially, this is up to the president's decision, and the mayor welcomed the guard troops here. The leadership on the ground in Memphis, in Tennessee, welcomed the National Guard troops there. That is not the case in Portland, and she would ask for those mayors and those leaders to welcome the federal or the National Guard troops on the ground there. That was the argument she was making from the podium today. But Reed, this is still in that legal process that is going to continue to play out as we're waiting to hear what the appeals court has to say about this specifically.
All right, Olivia Rinaldi, thank you so much for that update from the White House.